Right, returning now to further evidence of sliding support for Anthony Albanese and Labor contained in this Newspoll today. For his take, let's bring in the director at Redbridge Group Australia, Samaras. Thank you for your time. This was, I guess, confirming the last time we spoke. You were saying they're really on a terrible trajectory now. It's sort of like the plane's in a nosedive and there's that battle of political will to try and avert the crash. This is the lowest level of support for Labor since the 22 election. It's also the equal largest primary vote lead for the coalition since the last election. Where do you think the government's losing most of its support?
Oh, absolutely in the outer suburbs regions of this country. It's where the economic crisis is hitting the hardest. It's where we see people relying on food banks. It's where we see people who have eaten into their savings and now accruing credit card debt just to survive. It comes up in our research all the time. And this is where, unsurprisingly, with the Labor Party is actually losing altitude very fast.
And are these in sort of dead red Labor seats where it might go from, say, a 25% seat to a 15% seat, but it'll still stay in Labor's column? Or are these the seats that actually make and break government?
Actually, a bit of both. So there will be seats that make or break a government. So seats like Aston in Melbourne, Dunkley in Melbourne, regional electorates like Robertson, Gilmore in New South Wales, Paterson in New South Wales, Hunter, Bullwinkel, the new seat in Western Australia, which has got a bit of peri-urban sort of regional part of that state in it, which is on the outskirts of Perth. These electorates, they're the ones we're seeing in our research are moving away from Labor significantly. And then, of course, there are seats which, they hold that are safe, which, you would describe as part of their red wall, that are also on the decline. Now, these electorates, although you could call them safe, particularly Melbourne's outer western suburbs, are probably the ones in line for the biggest swings against them. We're talking about a group of people, communities out there that got hit really hard in the lockdowns. So economically, their economic situation was almost destroyed. Then an affordability crisis comes along and hits them again. And it's here where I think we could see some pretty big swings beyond the nationwide swings against Labor.
So when governments get into trouble, or political parties get into trouble, I mean, you and I observe them closely, you can see them trying to do things differently, as I said, to lift the nose of the plane, to turn things around. I'm watching the Prime Minister, I'm watching the front bench, and I'm not seeing that sense of urgency. I'm not seeing them trying to do things differently. You know Labor better than me. I mean, what's your observation?
Yeah, I'm struggling to work out what the strategy is. Look, back in the Black Saturday bushfires over a decade now, some of the advice that councils would give politicians is that you must be there when people are experiencing severe trauma, and you must be with them, and you must leave them with no impression, but that you're going to be there with them. The problem for this government is, over the last 2 years, the people that we've been talking about feel like no one's with them. So even if the Albanese government suddenly gets its comms sorted out, it starts announcing some great policies, these communities will basically reject anything they say, because basically they've been absent and not there with them during what they themselves would describe to us as some of the worst times of their lives.